Yeah, we will start the meeting within next 5 minutes. Sir, they will be joining soon, so we can start with Dr. Chandrika. And before that, you have to address, and then it will continue. It is unmute, please.
Yes, I said, are they expected soon?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then we can wait 2-3 minutes because it will be impolite to start without them.
Yeah.
We will reduce our time accordingly.
Okay.
I was just speaking to Kurukshetra. There was a very bad storm there last night,
Yes, sir.
1 o'clock, but not right now. I suppose this will reach there, or maybe it has come from that side. I do not know.
It is a dusty storm.
Yes, a very strong breeze. I think a lot of trees will fall, I think. Dr. Chandrika, you are from India or you're abroad? I don't think she's on the mic, Dr. Chandrika.
Yeah, she is there.
Sorry. I forgot to unmute. I'm from Bangalore, Mr. Anil.
Okay.
Good evening, sir. Madhavan here.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Welcome, Madhavan.
Yes.
Is the pandemic under control in Bangalore?
Yes, the number of cases have come down, and now the little bit of at least the non-ICU beds are getting available for patients, but still ICU beds are still a crunch. But definitely the total number of cases have come down and fatalities also have reduced.
Mercifully, but I do not know. But you see, people are talking of third wave now. On what basis? Is there just a statistical model, or why not a fourth wave? Why only of a third wave, if at all a third wave, you see? That is what baffles me. I tried to ask somebody that question yesterday and the day before. They had no answer.
Yeah, I think it all depends upon the mutation and what that mutation can do to the virus and to the people who are exposed to it. It all depends on that. So if the mutations are not very strong and if people have developed cross immunity to the new mutant virus, either through a vaccine or through getting infected with the previous infection, the fatalities and the number of cases might be low. But if not, it can be like similar to the second wave.
If not worse. Because
Yes.
it depends, you see what the mutation can go either way.
Yes.
Now, this is just a statistical model. You see, if it's a statistical model, that on what basis are they saying third wave will be bigger? If third wave will be bigger, assumptions are, is there a mutant already there? Or is the vulnerability there? Or what is the problem? Or the number of people probably who can infect others is bigger. Probably that is the critical factor in this. But you're from the medical fraternity. My father used to be from it. And he used to be an old timer.
It's only a theoretical at this point of time. The effectiveness we knew about the mutation. We did not know what exactly it can do. So we were able to guess that,
I'm a student of science and mathematics. All these assumptions and modeling is based on certain assumptions. Now, what are those assumptions? No newspaper is taking out those things. They're just talking of third wave. And I do not know whether it will create a market for those commodities. Who is behind the third wave? What is the basis of third wave? What are the assumptions? There's no clarity. But talking, you see, of epidemics, my father, as I said, who belonged to your profession, he used to be extremely alarmed about doing away with smallpox vaccines. He said, if this smallpox hits a population again, it will be extremely fatal. But of course, the
Yes.
US has not destroyed its smallpox vaccine. But we have.
Good evening, Mr. Rajdan.
Good evening, sir.
Well, I think what you said just now, I think both are actually correct as per my, understanding. Number one, you say it's historical because a century ago, there were three waves. The medium wave was very large. Then there was a third wave. Possibly people have that in their mind. And secondly, I think what you said about the market, that possibly is one of the reasons. And scientifically and bacteriologically or virologically, those modelings I don't think are yet completely done. So we are not very, certain about that. But all these things possibly are together.
I don't know, sir. Historically, you see, we had the First World War between 1914 and 1918, the Second World War from 1939 onwards.
45.
Now, we can't say that historically there is going to be a third World War taking 20 years or 30 years from that point of time. It has to have a certain basis. And unfortunately, that basis is not forthcoming,
Yes, it's not there.
at least to an old man like me.
But possibly some kind of market mechanism is happening.
Absolutely. That is certainly, I mean, if you're saying that you get prepared for a third wave, people will start manufacturing those items, start hoarding those items.
Exactly.
Whether the wolf comes or not, in any case, his cages will be ready.
Yes.
Sir,
See,
we can start with Dr. Chandika, and meanwhile, if they join, then it's good.
okay, in any case,
Yeah, otherwise we will keep it as a panel discussion and with all
Yes.
the stakeholders.
go ahead. You have to start off. I have to start after you.
Yes, sir.
And then, in any case, Dr. Chandrika will speak. If the others come meanwhile, then they'll be adjusted accordingly.
Right, sir.
Thank you so much. Please start off.
Yeah, so welcome to this webinar on how to deal with COVID pandemic in the new normal to next normal times. This is a very difficult time, and we are expecting some good news. Vaccination is there. Lot of tests are being done, but results are not very encouraging at this moment. And hopefully, with the help of telemedicine, telehealth, and others, new technologies, we or the patients can contact doctors and seek their advice. There is another aspect of mental health that is causing a concern in everybody's minds, because in lockdown period, everybody is inside and we are social elements, social human beings. So this is again a question mark, how to deal with stress and other situations. So I will request the chair, Mr. Anil Rajdan, former Secretary, Power, Government of India, and Chairman, Energy and Environment Foundation, to give wisdom, his wisdom on the subject. Dr. Rajdan, Mr. Rajdan, please.
Thank you, Dr. Garg. I think it's been very appropriate for the Energy and Environment Foundation to concentrate on these health series, because that is the uppermost concern, I think, of the global community, and particularly the developing world, which was struggling to move ahead. But I think a lot of progress has been halted by this untimely pandemic and its successive waves. Certainly, I have crossed the 70 years, and I can tell you that it's an unparalleled pandemic in my lifetime. And I think the global spread, which has been there, which has not spared the developing countries and the developed countries, it has meant that unemployment has increased. It has affected the education plans of a lot of youth across the world. The travel industry is in a mess. And I think there'll be a lot of financial failings in the months to come. Now, healthcare, even in normal times, which was a little hard to access in some of the developing world, and affordability was another issue that has been further exacerbated in these times. And I think even in respect of the normal emergencies or healthcare, for which patients were crowding hospitals, particularly the government-sponsored places, unfortunately, all those normal time diseases and elective surgeries have been put on the back burner, and maybe people will shorten their lifespans on account of that. But for fear of the pandemic and for lack of availability of beds and space, they have no option. This, I think, has been a secondary health impact of this pandemic, which has brought further misery. All in all, I think the global poverty stands heightened today by all indicators. In my view, the pandemic has highlighted the need to augment our basic and primary healthcare and tertiary healthcare facilities, particularly in developing countries. Healthcare is as important as infrastructure, and we thought that infrastructure is the key to development, to providing employment, but I think life precedes everything else. And I think, hopefully, in all the development plans of developing countries, health will assume a prime place of importance. Because as they say, health is wealth. And in fact, the other day I received one of those habitual morning message senders who wish you a good day. They said 7 wonders of the world. First is to see, second is to hear, third is to touch, fourth is to taste, fifth is to feel, sixth is to laugh, and last is to love. Now these he termed as 7 wonders of the world, and all these come with good health. So I think health its importance can hardly be emphasized. But coming down to the present pandemic, and I think precisely As I mentioned, the first thing we have to augment handle.
Storm is creating problem outside.
There is some lag.
Yeah.
Probably his connectivity has gone, sir.
Yeah.
He's no more connected now.
Dr. Chandika?
Yes, Dr. Anil.
Yeah, you can start meanwhile. And you are the only person, responsible person after Mr. Razdan in the Home of Affairs.
I will rejoin.
Yeah.
Who? Somebody said something?
Yeah, he's
Puneet?
telling.
Mr. Razdan will rejoin within a minute.
Yeah.
Mr. Razdan is likely
Should I
to join.
start my presentation or
Yeah, just
should I wait?
Just
Wait, Dr. Anil? Should I wait?
yeah, you can just wait for a minute or so and then you can start. Because time of each and everybody is very, very important. So we should do justice with the time. You can start.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Anil and the Global Health Organization for giving me this opportunity to talk to you about the telehealth and telemedicine and the emerging opportunities in this area. Just to give you a background, I know a lot of us are talking about telehealth these days, especially during the COVID period. It has taken a tremendous center stage, and the growth of tele platforms have multiplied several times during the last 2 years. Just to give you a background about India, so India is the second most populous country in the world, and we have about 139 crore population. And World Health Organization defines that we need to have at least one doctor for 1,000 population, and whereas our current ratio of doctor-patient is about 0.62:1,000, and the COVID-19 pandemic has only worsened it because we lost many of our doctors and nurses and frontline workers to this pandemic over the last 2 years. The way the healthcare has been distributed in our country, we have 70% of population living in the rural areas and 30% in the urban areas, whereas the healthcare delivery systems are maximally concentrated in the urban areas, and a very sketchy healthcare system as we go towards the peripheries, that is tier 2, tier 3 cities and the rural areas. As per the population medicine, as Mr. Anil was also mentioning, that the majority of the requirement is in the primary care space. Mostly 90 to 95% of our population requires a very good primary care system, followed by secondary and the tertiary care system. So it is very much important for us to strengthen our primary care system across the country, and more so in the rural areas, tier 2, tier 3 and the rural areas. So we need to build capacity, we need to build skills, and we need to redesign the way we deliver care in the coming years. Because of this delta between the urban and rural, because of this gap that exists in the delivery of the care that we have, and worsened by the pandemic, we have a huge gap in the way the care is being delivered. So how do we bridge this gap? And definitely, to bridging this gap, we need to build capacity, we need to build training programs to enhance the skills, and we need to have more and more people join this industry. But that is a long shot. But at this point, how do we bridge this gap in a very short period? The way we can do it is by using technology. So technology, the mobile phones, internet, and Internet of Things seems to be promising and seems to be the way in which we can bridge this gap in the short term, along with capacity building training programs and improving our infrastructure. We should be able to bridge this gap in the long term as well. Coming to telemedicine and telehealth services, what has happened in our country so far? So far, the telehealth services is not something new. It has been started in 2001 by the initiatives of connecting the remote villages through the satellite channels. So there are a couple of examples that I have put forward here, where the government of India has taken initiatives to connect the rural areas through tele, and these projects are as old as 2001. So you can imagine, though the concept has been there for more than 20 years now, it never took the center stage, and it never took the focus and the effort that it required to reach where it should be. Just to give you an example, so I have noted down a couple of them. There are a lot more such initiatives that the government has taken in the area of tele-ICU. There are a lot more NGOs and other such players in the market who have experimented with the telehealth and healthcare services. But nevertheless, it has never come to the mainstream the way it should. So, following the initiatives done by the government in terms of connecting the rural and other such areas, there are a lot of regulatory reforms were also coming to. Many of the reforms like setting up a telemedicine guidelines, then by Digital India initiatives were as old as 2005. So we also launched a Digital India mission on 15th of August 2020. The National Health Authority has been entrusted with the role of designing the strategy and building technology infrastructure and implementing Digital India health mission. And recently, the Ministry of Health also published telemedicine guidelines when we were at the beginning of the cusp of the pandemic last year, as of March 2020. We also have the e-pharmacy draft for people who have started the online pharmacy business, and so on and so forth. So there are many regulatory framework that are work in progress, and some of them implemented and some of them yet to see the light of the day. So these are on the regulatory forms. So first we understood, so far we have discussed about the delta, the gap between the urban and the rural, the population of the country, the lack of manpower, and the way we can bridge this gap is through using technology. So that in order to bridging the gap using technology, simultaneously we work on building capacity and training people so that there are more number of healthcare providers that are available to provide this connection, the telehealth services, both from the technology point of view and from in presence point of view. Then we looked at the various initiatives done by the government and the regulatory reforms that the government is working to make this industry much more robust and a level playing field. Now, coming to why telehealth, why should we consider telehealth? There are a lot of benefits from the telehealth. When it comes to patient, it is a convenience. It is reducing the risk of infection and saving time and money, right care at the right time, efficient and continuous monitoring of chronic patients. I think the COVID-19 has proved all these points right, and we don't have to doubt any of these. Appointment within 5 to 10 minutes on the tele platform, and they don't have to fear leaving homes because they don't want they need not to be sitting in a crowded places where the chances of getting infection is more, and definitely it has helped the chronic patients with the continuous data monitoring of their heart rate, saturation, blood pressure, so on and so forth. For physician, it is expanded the patient base. Many times, a lot of physicians used to were not able to follow up on their patients once they see them, and those who are living in different cities. Now, the telemedicine platform has given that ability for physicians to keep in touch with their patients, those not in the same city. Frequent interaction. Anytime, like it's just 5 or 10 minutes a call with the patient to get on the patient, and easy participation and training and education and better management of vulnerable patient. When it comes to insurance, though it is not a big player in our country, definitely insurance is significantly it reduces the cost due to fewer and shorter hospital admissions and lesser readmissions, enabling patients with better access and efficiency of healthcare system. So in our country, the insurance penetration on the whole is less, and it is mainly focused on inpatient and acute care. So having telemedicine platform helps to reduce the readmissions or pick up complications early on, so that the patients don't use up their insurance amount, and it is there for them for a longer duration of time. In other countries, it also helps to reduce the outpatient cost, where insurance also covers outpatient care. So for healthcare facilities, it decreases no-show, lower readmissions, elevate the resources and cost constraint, and expand access to remote and rural regions. For a healthcare provider, definitely these are the advantages. Many times, because of travel inability to travel, patients don't come to appointments for proper follow-up. This can be easily overcome by using the tele platform and a lower readmission rate, thereby decreasing the cost of per patient per episode, and they can better utilize this manpower that is there in the hospital for other areas, and definitely improves the access to rural tier 2, tier 3 cities. So after understanding how it helps each segment, it is also important that we understand the economic business. It is important that to know what is the size of this market, and is there really a potential for the players to invest and expand in this area. It is said that the global telehealth market as of 2019 in one of the survey is about $50 billion US, and it is growing significantly year on year. and the growth has been multiple times increased in the last 2 years because of COVID. But definitely, this rate of growth might not continue after COVID, and it might somewhere stabilize as we go along. But definitely, this is a market that is there and which is growing. And telehealth market in India is also known to reach at least a 5 billion market in the next 4 to 5 years. So this is the potential of the market that we are talking about. Now, looking at the market potential, where are all the areas that we can talk about? So teleconsultation and home monitoring of chronic patients and teleradiology, these are the services that has been there for a long time, and though it has not picked up momentum, but it has been one of the oldest use case for telehealth. So teleconsultation and home monitoring of chronic patients. Whereas teleradiology has had a proven business models world over, and from India itself, we have many case studies and businesses which have done very well in teleradiology, and they are not only providing the reporting facilities for tier 2, tier 3 cities or for other metro cities. They're also providing the reporting services to other countries, and thereby overcoming the border and border issues and global reach. So the newer entrant into this field of telepathology, though telepsychiatry, teledermatology, telepsychology are all a part of teleconsultation, has been there for many years. Now it has taken a center stage. And tele-ICU is also another area which is emerging. And the new kids on the block is e-commerce in healthcare. That is online pharmacies, online ordering lab investigations, and online ordering radiological investigations is also is an emerging area where we see that there is a huge potential. So these are various types of tele services that are already present and are emerging as we go along. So where do we start? So who are the players? So just to give you a brief, there are many players in the market who are doing this telehealth services, but I have put down quite a few of them which are there in the market for quite some time and have made a name for themselves. So these are some of the players which are there and which have the number of using services and the type of services that they are offering. And we see that over the last post-COVID, that is early this year, we saw after the first wave, we saw that the number of people using the platform for ordering medicines for especially for the chronic diseases, so on and so forth, has been has increased a lot. And here also we know what the gap is and we know how to cover it. We spoke about the regulations and we spoke about the market potential and we spoke about what are the areas where the telehealth can help. In spite of all this, why are we not there? So there is a survey which was done in 2019, which showed that that the public awareness to this system is quite low and acceptance is quite low, especially in India, and thereby these services are not utilized to the extent that they should. Now, coming to what are the challenges? Obviously, if the awareness is low and if the acceptance is low, even though it has a huge business potential, we might not reach where. The challenges are limited access to broadband. So, as we see that that today itself in this conference, we faced. Challenges of internet connection. We faced challenges of not being able to connect and speak on time. So such challenges exist. So the broadband availability the internet availability at the remote places, and the lack of digital infrastructure, digital literacy. That means people not knowing how to use these services, or even the existence of services is not known for many. And in some countries, it is also about licensing. So since health is a state subject, even in our country, each state has their own license. But luckily for us, with the new telemedicine guidelines, removed this requirement, and they said that if you're licensed in any state, you can practice pan India. But this is restricted to India as of now, and does not cover other countries globally. So there are no big corporations. As you saw in my list, there are many players in the telemedicine area, but not very big corporations driving this. Recently, there has been some interest that we are seeing the growth of Tata Health coming into picture, and so on and so forth. But not most of the players in this area are startups which are looking at covering this market, mainly in the metros, and to some extent penetrating into the tier 2, tier 3 cities. And obviously the logistic support that is required to run this type of a system is also need to be considered, because it is not just advising the patient what to do, but after we advise the patient what to do, how is the patient going to get the lab investigations done, how the patient is going to get the radiology investigations done, how do we make sure that the medicines reach these patients, are all very important. Just talking to a patient through a web portal and telling them what is wrong and telling them what needs to be done is not enough. So we need to also build the logistics support around the telemedicine platform, and that definitely has impact on scalability. So how do we scale this to make sure that we reach more and more people is definitely an issue. And public private partnership. So this needs the lack of public-private partnership is also and think of an infrastructure support, because at this point of time we don't have this in our curriculum. What are the etiquettes that is required to conduct a teleconsultation? How to conduct a teleconsultation? What are the etiquettes that is required for for connecting to this to this team of people in the periphery, and not only from this end about from the doctors and the nurses, but what about the other end? So what are the skills that is required for the paramedical and the nursing staff which are there at the rural areas? So how do they examine the patient? What are the red flags that they need to observe and alert the consultant or the doctor at the other end to make sure that they get the right advice at the right time? So all these needs to be factored into the system that we are trying to build. So these are definitely the challenges that we have. So I would like to say that yes, there is a gap, there is an urban and a rural divide. Yes, there is a lack of skilled talent available, but there is a technology that can help us to bridge this gap both short term and long term. And for the long term, definitely we need to work on capacity building and skill set training. There are a lot of regulations and frameworks which have already happened and in the process of happening. There are many players, the startup companies, which have already entered this market through telehealth, online pharmacies, and various such initiatives. We do have challenges of infrastructure, challenges of broadband availability, internet availability, the challenges of big players coming into not many big players present in this market, and also challenges of training the manpower both at the delivery end and the execution of both the sides, that is the urban side as well as the rural side. or you can say that the person who is giving the telemedicine services and also the person who's receiving it, there's special set of skills and special set of knowledge that is required. But this is a huge market that we should not ignore. So we have to come together. All the stakeholders have to come together. The government has a role to play. The private players have to make this as one of their core area of function. The telehealth and telemedicine services usually come into effect only when there is adversity. But otherwise, it is not taken very seriously in many of the acute care hospitals, but we need to take that into consideration and make that as part and parcel of our daily operations. Operations and big corporations should come into this so that they can leverage the logistics that they have and the ability long-term sustainable type of a business model. And technology companies, definitely there are a lot of technology companies who are developing the solutions, but they need to partner with the other industries to make the use of this technology and get these technologies to be used in a meaningful manner. And insurance providers to help us to leverage these different instruments that is present and try and encourage patients and educate them to understand the use of telemedicine, and the importance of telemedicine is very important. And the teaching and training institutes should incorporate this into their mainstream teaching so that people who are executing telemedicine and also people who are receiving telemedicine at both the sides have the adequate skills and knowledge to deliver this. So these are some of the thoughts that I had about telehealth and telemedicine. I'll be happy to take any questions from anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chandrika. Thank you. I'm sorry. These, as you rightly pointed out, these are the technology dependencies that we have in overcrowded systems, probably plus weather conditions. The points that you raised are precisely the kind of points that I would have highlighted. And I think you've given a very, very learned exposition on the subject. See, this telemedicine, I think, you see, it has to ride on a strong backbone of paramedics, because ultimately there's somebody who has to go and physically see the patient and assure the patient and his relatives or her relatives of what is to be done, how it is to be done. And unfortunately, I think in developing countries, our support for these paramedics, nursing staff, etc., lot to be desired. Those institutions, I think a hospital of old used to run on the strength of its nursing staff. Now, nursing staff is a very, I think, provider. And if we have a network of these paramedics available in rural areas or semi-urban areas or even in urban areas, they could go around and probably be parasitic kind of health aids through telemedicine. The other agency I feel I would like reaction on this is, you see, is the chemists. Now, all pharmacists are supposed to be only opening a pharmacist organization if they have a qualified pharmacist. Now, in the developed world, it is necessary that you have a picture of the person, his identity, who is supposed to be the qualified pharmacist who's running the pharmacy, which is sadly lacking in developing countries. Even in a country like India, in the metros, that is not there. Now, if we strengthen, I think, that arm, that pharmacy arm, that's the secondary level of health awareness and care, maybe these people can become, you see, the feeding or feedback nodes to the telemedicine providers at a higher professional level. So you need, every structure needs a foundation. It cannot be a direct link to the patient. The poor patient is too hassled, he's too ignorant. You need some kind of a buffer in between, as an almost qualified medical person, at least who's aware of what the patient's condition, his needs, and the need for any change or care. Now, when you're talking, you see, of home care in Haryana recently, with the help of Deloitte, there was an experiment on home care in Karnal district, and I think now being extended to Rohtak district. And there I'm told that the the cost in Indian currency are India district 5 crores, that is about 50 million rupees. Those kinds of models need to be, of course, be tested out and then replicated, not replicated immediately. So these are things that I think we have to handle. But then when we are handling telemedicine, home care, prevention of any secondary infection is avoided.
I think Dr. Anil, we lost him, lost Mr. Anil again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
So
connectivity.
I will request a learned person is here, Uma Nombiar, she is requested to address about telemedicine and what digitization their organization is making.
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr.
Uma?
Anil. It's very interesting. I joined when Chandrika was presenting on telemedicine. And Chandrika, that was a very well presented overview of telemedicine status in the country. What you have said is right. I mean, telemedicine.
Connectivity.
I think there is a.
Yeah,
Dr. Anil is also speaking.
Mr. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So telemedicine, is here to stay and is here to grow. It'll, of course, it has grown in spurts because of the COVID pandemic, but everybody having realized the true potential of it, it'll grow steadily. And we all have to make sure that we adapt the technology. So telemedicine will form the basic, unit of digital health. In the brick and mortar structure, we have the PHCs, okay, or we have the ASHA health worker going home and collecting data. In the digital health system, telemedicine or teleconsultation at home will be the first unit. And therefore, the stronger the telemedicine system is, that's going to be the bottommost layer of the whole pyramid of digital health. So I think we all owe it to, make sure that we adapt it, we adopt it in our usage, and we also make effort to make sure that this is a robust system that is developed. So thank you, Dr. Anil. This is what I had to say.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Uma.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Uma. And it is a really pleasant surprise to see you, and really happy to hear your comments. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, if Mr. Anil Razdan is joined, or his network is okay, Mr. Anil Razdan, please.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now? I'm so sorry for this such a bad connectivity today. I could hear portions
No
of
problem.
Dr. Uma.
Yeah.
So, and I think before some mishap
Yeah.
the last point that I wish to just point out in case I'm not in the discussion because of this connectivity issue. The last issue is, you see, what is the role of WHO and what is the role of a possible, you need a global policeman today. Can we allow these things to continue without an international watchdog? Limitations in control over gene, DNA, research, vaccines, all these issues are being raised in the public. They're only in the area of doubt so far, but these are certain fears and apprehensions. And I think the global medical community will have to get together, besides the national security agencies, to devise a security platform for monitored research in DNA, gene therapies or gene research, and also for vaccine research. Because bio-warfare is the last thing we want after a nuclear warfare. That could spell the end of mankind. I think with these thoughts, I leave it here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Dr. Madhavan, you are here an expert in food and nutrition, and this is very crucial at this pandemic times and beyond. So what are the challenges and how we should cope? We are not talking like yoga therapy and others, but food state. Dr. Madhavan, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Garg, and my respect to Anil Razdan sir also. I think I'm audible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. See, the pandemic COVID-19 has changed our culture totally. There is a cultural change which has been brought up by COVID-19, which has got its own implication or repercussion on our living style also. So what people like me, who are the what you call it, the health related people who are working in nutrition side, say is that you have to have a living style which is ground level, which is one with the nature. Now that yesterday or day somebody was talking about superfood. A superfood is something which they claim that you take that superfood, you get superpowers, super immunity. Immunity is a word, of course, it has come suddenly to me now. Immunity is a word which has suddenly come to our life. For the last year, from last January, 2020 January onwards, this word immunity is floating in the market. And immunity has become a number one marketable word. People market immunity just like anything. Many of the food business operators who are making nutritious food and supplementary food, their turnover has become 200 times and 300 times just for the last 1 year. Whereas the total economy of each nation has come down. But these people are making money. And what about the immunity that we have today? What is happening to our immunity? If you start digging out into it all are fox, I should say. There is nothing like immunity tablet that you can buy from the market. You can buy 1 kilo immunity in the market. No, there is nothing like that. You have to build it up. You have to have your own immunity built in your system. And that can be done only through a composite food. There is nothing like a tablet can give you immunity, can deliver you immunity. What I suggest always is that we must have a balanced diet. a diet composing of carbohydrate, protein, fats and oils, and essential nutrients. There are other nutrients also, just like vitamins, antioxidants. And you take natural food in your house, a homemade food, like vegetables. If you are a non-vegetarian, you can take fish, which will have a lot of protein and the essential fatty acids like omega-3, omega-6, etc., and the right combination, etc. And these are the things which will give you immunity. I always propose that never go for the marketed superfoods like that. These are all only marketing ploys. Many people may not like it. My words will not be welcomed by many people. So I am for a naturally brought up, naturally what you call as inherited and brought up immunity for we people. This will be very useful in the present context of the pandemic, COVID-19, and the next, in future also. So we have to have a balanced diet, a homemade diet, like our ancient people have been taking, and food has to be consumed as a medicine, like the earlier Ayurveda culture says. Food, you must consume food as medicine. Thank you very much, Dr. Garg, for these few minutes of mind exchange.
Thank you, Dr. Madhavan. As another professor, Vijaya Padma, is here from biotechnology, and she is very well known in her field. I will invite her to address how to deal with this pandemic in this situation and next normal. Dr. Vijaya Padma, please.
Thank you, Dr. Amit, for the nice introduction. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Amit, for the nice introduction.
Speak a bit loudly, please. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction, Dr. Amit. Also, I would like to thank I would like to present my today's presentation. Herbal ingredients. Actually, today's topic is how to face the COVID pandemic in the new normal, the next normal time. Sir, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's okay.
So, as all of us are aware that just a few minutes ago, Dr. Anil Rajan was asking about the third wave, fourth wave, and all. So, we are already in the second wave. We're seeing influenza virus, and that too, it's an RNA virus. It keeps mutating. That's the reason why even the vaccines may not work. So, whatever vaccine we are taking, already we are not sure whether it will protect against all the variants which are existing. So whatever Covishield and Covaxin are developed based on the particular variant which is more prevalent in India. So, and these are all DNA-based viruses, whereas if you protein-based viruses, whereas if you go to America and all, they are mRNA-based vaccines. So these vaccines will provide as long as these variants are there. As the next wave, like the next winter, again during the winter season, again if the variant changes, that mutate, it keeps on mutating. The virus mutates again. Definitely, we are going to, because that being a new mutant, these vaccines may not work. So as long as our immunity is low, we can succumb to the disease. So what we should do is to actually improve our immunity. So now we are doing it for the specific virus by taking this vaccine. But if you improve our general immunity by taking the herbal medicine, which is our country is more traditional Indian medicine, has a lot of improving the immunity, we can general immunity, we can prevent like the what do I say, morbidity can be reduced. That is what I feel I would like to say. So there might be third wave, fourth wave also might be there. Another 2-3 years it is going to be there. So it's kind of struggle for the we already have the Darwin theory where we say survival of the fittest. So struggle for the existence and survival of the fittest. So eventually all the low immunity people are being targeted now because they are succumbing to the disease. So if you improve the immunity, that's the only way to come over the disease or come over the pandemic. So this is brief introduction I would like to go to my talk. That is today's talk is how we can use this global immune booster to combat against COVID-19 battle. Now we know that this increased global travel and this urbanization, they are the greater exploitation of the natural environment. These are the things which are increasing the likelihood of the pandemic over the past century. They are definitely going to continue for a long time, and so it will intensify. The pandemic also will keep coming, and also that's why we have to go for a policy change where we have to focus more on the identifying and limiting this outbreak, and also we have to be well prepared for both in ways of what do I say? We have to enhance our health infrastructure as well as I told, we have to prophylactically we have to enhance our immunity so that we are better prepared to face the situation. So in this context, the international community also has made some progress towards preparing for as well as mitigating the impact of the pandemic. So they have WHO has prepared an international health regulation to compel all the World Health Organization members to member states to meet specific standards for detecting, reporting, and responding to outbreaks. If there is any such any outbreak or identity, you should stop the spread. Immediately we should report. That has not happened. That's why it has led to this global pandemic situation. So what they have framed the international health regulations for detecting, reporting in time, and also on responding to outbreaks by spreading by inhibiting the spread or stopping the spread or process of the disease in the initial stages. So all the countries have to be well equipped with all these things, both for identification and also for stopping the spread. This is a very, very important thing. So international donors also have begun their funding, as you know, the Bill Gates, like an international funder for building the health infrastructure. Despite all these improvements, there are still some more gaps and challenges in such global pandemic. Coming to all this, now we were talking about the pandemic. What are the pandemics? These pandemics are large-scale outbreaks which greatly increase the morbidity and mortality over a wide geographic area and cause significant economic, social, and political disruption. So pandemics are therefore they are identified by the global scale rather than severity of the illness. Now we know that epidemics or endemics are malaria and all are more prevalent in Africa. But we also had the malaria, but now it's been kind of eradicated. It is not that common. So such things which are present in regionally, we generally call them as endemic. And the epidemic is, some plague and all, sometimes Spanish flu and all, suddenly either in one particular location, such things are called epidemic. But now COVID has become a pandemic because it's spread all over the world. Now we can have a history of pandemics. We can see the timeline. There are various things like smallpox, black death, smallpox in 17th century plague, and 18th century plague, the Great Plague, and also cholera outbreak. So these are all the yellow fever, HIV. So all these things, Spanish flu, all these things can be considered as some of the pandemics. So coming to the risk, so this risk is two ways. One is spark risk and the next is spread risk. The spark risk is where it originated. If it has been like it has originated in Wuhan, if it has been started there itself, it would have spread, but they have not reported in time and it led to the spread. So initially we have also done that. The people have entered and we have found, we have done this contact tracing and all that to stop the spread. So that is what is the initial stages. Now it crossed the first wave itself, we could not contain. Despite the lockdown and all that, although we could, to some extent, we were successful in the first wave, but the second wave, maybe whatever, there are so many things which have led to the situation, maybe elections and all the data, many such things, farmers, whatever. There are many such things which led to such widespread. Now we are not able to contain. Now we have far above the far, what do I say? We have crossed all that situation, spread at all. There is no way lockdown is also not able to contain the spread now. So now we have to, even help whatever is there, we could not assess the situation, which we were not enough prepared, and also for the kind of population we have in the country. So it is not possible for us to completely come over the situation despite the quarantine. So we have to be prepared at least for the future, and we have to somehow by increasing the enhancing the immunity only, we have to face the situation. Now coming to this, so what is the pandemic again? We are coming back to this. So as we have seen that pandemic, the influenza is very, very likely candidate because there is a seasonal flu. So these things can be a pandemic because they can spread across the globe. Unlike other things, other things are other pathogens are regional specific or particular conditions specific everywhere. But being a simple influenza virus, it spreads across the globe, and so it is most likely candidate for a pandemic. And also, there is a difference between epidemic and pandemic influenza. In epidemic influenza, it is regionally only it affects. Like we have seen some things like previously, the Spanish flu and all, which occurred in Spain, but that was contained there. But pandemic influenza is defined when a new influenza virus which emerges and spreads around the world now, which has happened now. And most people have, we don't have immunity because they are not a new virus. That's the reason we have never, the body has never come, it has never come across such an antigen. So our body is not prepared for that. That's why we have no immunity. So general immunity only can be there, innate immunity, but not specific immunity because we have never faced that. So immunity is not there. That's why it is a pandemic situation. So how to mitigate this? The most cost-effective strategies for increasing the pandemic preparedness include strengthening the core health infrastructure and increasing the situational awareness, which we are already doing through, various awareness, advertising and things like that, and the public health infrastructure. They have started in the first phase. With the lockdown, simultaneously they have started. But despite all that, now we are in the second wave, and rapidly extinction the sparks that could lead to the pandemic situation. All this we have done during the first pandemic, but now we have the second wave, which is we could not contain all that. So now once the pandemic has started, a coordinated response should be implemented, focusing on maintenance of the situational awareness. So we have to keep advertising, and so as nowadays journalism, if you see the media, the daily news and all, if you follow correctly, you will know that update as and when medicine has come or whatever data is available.
Madam, there is a lot of disturbance coming in your voice. Madam, there's a lot of disturbance coming in your voice.
Hello?
We are not able to. Either a lot of disturbance is there in your voice. Yeah. Either your fan is working, or can you just?
I'll just switch it off.
Yeah, please. That may work.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, it's better. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, sorry, sir. So, successful contingency planning and response require surge capacity. So, what am I? Okay, once a pandemic has started, a coordinated response should be implemented, focusing on maintenance of the situational awareness, public health messaging, reduction of the transmission, and care for the treatment of the ill. All these things we have been doing simultaneously as we are in the second wave now. Now, successful contingency planning, because here although whatever we plan, whatever we have planned, the estimate will always because in a situation like this, where our country's resources are limited and we have such a big population to care for, we cannot expect entirely from the government. So all of us have to come together to face this situation, I strongly believe in that. So successful contingency planning and response require surge capacity. So generally, surge capacity is to come up to the whatever situation we have, how to face the situation. So ability to scale up the delivery of the health interventions proportionately for the severity of the situation and also the population at risk. But we have to do it all together only. So surge capacity by foreign aid providers. Generally, in any epidemic situations, the surge capacity can be expected from the foreign institutions in the form of foreign aid providers. It's a tenable strategy during localized outbreaks, that is during epidemics. But global surge capacity has limitations because, during the full-scale global pandemic, the higher capacity states will have to look into their own states, their own population they have to cater to. So this cannot be completely relied on now. So another thing is risk transfer mechanisms such as risk pooling and sovereign level catastrophe insurance. That is by providing a small insurance. So if all people general insurance by small amounts, if you if you encourage, it can be provided. It's also a mechanism by which it's a viable option for managing the pandemic situation. Risk pooling. Coming to knowledge gaps, spending and cost specifically associated with the pandemic preparedness and response efforts are poorly tracked. So these are all the knowledge gaps because we could not assess that we will have such a situation. Nobody anticipated. So already we had last year also we had recession, economic recession. So now, so the only thing which we can do now is whatever we are good at, we have to do. That is, I told you we are already good. I mean, our country has traditionally all the good in Ayurvedic medicine and yoga and all those things. So we have to improve our own immunity. That's how we can combat this disease. That's what I strongly believe. So herbal medicines can be used as immunity boosters. So the single cause of this disease, highly communicable disease, that is a novel coronavirus, which is called SARS-CoV-2. It belongs to a seventh known virus of the Coronaviridae family. It's capable of infecting humans. Life is changing because of this coronavirus pandemic, but whether it will be changed forever depends on our coping strategy. So the coronavirus is not an end of the globalization. But however, it is on the contrary, human security established through a higher degree of social and economic cooperation and interdependence should be our strategy for dealing with the coronavirus pandemic in this changing world and for establishing a normative consensus towards a shared future for the mankind. So our strategy for coping with this virus should be, it will determine how our world will change. Now, in this COVID pandemic situation, herbal medicines are frequently being used both as prophylactic as well as therapeutic agents by many people across the world. So mainly, especially for the people who are asymptomatic people or mildly symptomatic, they can rely on these herbal immune as therapeutics. But before that itself, if you generally, if it make it a practice to generally rely on these things, good practices, like as Madhavan sir told, we have to go for a balanced diet as well as good yoga practices and taking these immune boosters, herbal as immune boosters before, as prophylactic before getting the disease, and after the disease also, many of them will be useful for people with asymptomatic or mild conditions. So approach to herbal medicine. The traditional medicines in general are generally regarded they're not given their due because of that. They're considered as underrated. Their translational ability is underrated by the novel research and drug development drug developers, that is pharma community. It has been frequently indicated that 70 to 80% of the population belonging to several developing countries are directly dependent on herbal drugs for their primary healthcare in comparison to the modern synthetic drugs. Beneficial impact of the medicinal plants lies in their bioactive constituents, specifically the secondary metabolites such as the steroids, alkaloids, diterpenes, triterpenes, aliphatics, and glycosides. So traditional Indian medicine network is one of the oldest health modules since the human existence, and it plays a crucial role in combating and fulfilling the needs of the global healthcare system. Coming to the plant-based therapeutic approaches against COVID-19. So the traditional practices include Ayurveda, Siddha, Yoga, and Unani, homeopathy, and naturopathy. They're all lucratively practiced for healing various infectious disorders. So in India, recently we have the Ministry of Health Ministry has suggested, the Minister of Ayush has suggested to drink Kadha as immunity booster during COVID-19 catastrophe. This Kadha is prepared from all the dry ingredients like spices. It contains a lot of spices and herbs. So this powder is available as sachets. So it is advised by the Ayush Ministry of Ayush to consume as immunity booster. Apart from that, another thing which is Ayush 64. This is also a novel formulation. Originally, it was it was prepared this formulation was devised for using against malaria and many other fevers. This decoction contains of sunti, that is gingiber officinal rosé, that is dry ginger actually. Launga, that is launga is cloves, commonly called as clove, and maricha, that is piper nigrum, that is pepper, black pepper. So they have been recommended to the healthy as well as COVID-19 infected people. That means both as prophylactic as well as therapeutic agent, as it provides both. It enhances the immunity, both humoral as well as cell-mediated immunity. Ayush has also recommended several medicinal plant extracts for prophylactic use. Prophylactic means as immune booster. That is before we are getting the disease. Prevention. So prophylactic use against COVID-19, which include warm extracts of Tinospora cordifolia, Andrographis paniculata, Cydonia oblonga, Ziziphus, Jujube, and Cordia mixta. So for enhancing antioxidant, immune modulatory, anti-allergic, smooth muscle relaxant, and anti-influenza activity. Sir, you're able to see the slides? Hello?
No.
No,
Yeah.
No, we were not. We were just listening to you.
No slide.
Okay, I thought I've already shared the screen. Can I share, or should you allow?
You can just send. You can just send your presentation. You can send your presentation, and we will just share with all the participants.
Okay. How to share screen is one
Okay.
option.
Thank you.
Shall I?
Not here. You can send by email or so. We will share with the participants later.
Oh, later. No, so I cannot present now. I have to just talk only. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. So traditional
Thank you,
Chinese
Dr.
medicine.
Padma, for your illuminating talk on different aspect of how to deal with COVID-19. One professor is also here from Andhra Pradesh, and I will request him, Dr. I.S. Chaitanya from AIMS, Andhra Pradesh. Dr. Chaitanya, are you there?
Sir, I have not completed my presentation.
Yeah.
Sir, I have not completed my
So,
presentation.
Mr. Chairman. Okay, can you complete within next 2-3 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Please.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, safety and clinical characteristics of traditional medicines are being studied intensively in the recent times. Their consumption is also greatly increasing and also getting approved by the scientific communities. So, hence, herbal medicine is being explored for possible therapeutic against the novel coronavirus. So, here we have some, there are several studies which suggest anti-coronaviral activity in indigo tinctoria, evolvus alcinoidex, and also vivex trifolia. These are all all these plant extracts have been tried as seem to have anti-coronavirus activity in mice, and also there are other things such as Coriandrum, sativum, punica granatum, and Borevia diffusa, Casa occidentalis. All these plant extracts have been they seem to have restraining effect against ACE inhibitor. They are used as ACE inhibitor, and also the Cassia nilotica, Ocimum sanctum, Eugenia jamboliana. These are all they all seem to have potent activity against SARS-CoV-2. So here another thing is SARS-CoV-2. So there is garlic and Glycyrrhiza glabra. They seem to have antiviral activity against SARS-CoV-2. And also holy basil. This also seems to have modulatory activity on GABA, and also it is having it is generally traditionally used against cough and all. So it is having anti-corona activity. It seems to have anti-corona activity. And also another plant, Clerodendrum and Clerodendrum in inermi. This is also having viral ribosome machinery. It seems to deactivate the viral ribosomal machinery utility, and it seems to have utility against SARS-CoV-2 protein translation and protein synthesis. So there are several plants such as Echinacea purpura and also curcuma, that is curcuma longa, that is turmeric. This also is mostly used as an important spice and also as a natural food coloring agent and food flavor, and also used as a food flavor. It is also having, it is traditionally being used in Asian countries as a medicine or supplement. It serves both as antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and anti-cancer agent. And it is also used against diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, obesity, neurodegenerative and inflammatory bowel diseases. This is widely used as ACE inhibitor. That's why a clinical study is needed. I mean, it's been suggested that it may serve as antiviral agent also against COVID-2. Another thing is cinchona species. They are also widely available in Indian mountain forest. This is beneficial. Effect was first discovered by Jesuit missionaries, and also they have expanded throughout the world. This bark seem to have quinine alkaloids. It is actually originally used as an anti-malarial agent, and it is also used as a chloroquine analog because it is similar to chloroquine anti-malarial agent. Now, as we all are aware that chloroquine was considered as a possible antiviral agent against COVID-2 also. So quinine also has been tried as anti-COVID agent. And here we have other triterpenoids also are there. So triterpenoids are, they also play a vital role in modulation of cellular metabolism, specifically as they are involved in biosynthesis of sterols and have significant antiviral activity. So there are several triterpenes which are being widely used, which include salvinorin A derived from Salvia divinorum, and bilobalide and zincolide, an extract from ginkgo biloba, and the citrate from Baxio and Citridora, menthol from mentha, and noscapin from Papaver family, phoscolin from Pictranthus barbatus. And there are glycyrrhoza is another polyphenol which is widely used as which has been identified as potent COVID-19 protease inhibitor by an in silico study, and bicalin is also. So these are the things which were widely used by Chinese people also, Chinese medicine. So they found them to be very useful as preventing this COVID infection or even as therapeutic. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
How
so
many
much for the
more
opportunity.
speakers, Dr. Garg? How many more?
I think there are no other speaker. We have to just ask the audience if there is any, and we can bind up.
Dr. Chandrika's left, I think.
With your permission.
Dr. Anil, I'm here.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Please. I think since you began the discussion on a highly professional note and charting out the course for the future, what are your thoughts after listening to some of these ideas on alternative medicine and also affordability and regulatory control over telemedicine is another issue. And whether telemedicine without a tertiary support structure at the field level, as I mentioned, of paramedics or pharmacists, that can succeed on its own. If we have to look at it as an alternative methodology, and I think a very affordable methodology for developing countries, maybe we have to go about it in a different way altogether, like extension services in the various development programs like agriculture or anything else. Because you do need an intermediary who is in direct contact, in some kind of contact with the beneficiary or the intended beneficiary, or as you say, the target audience. That pillar of support and a communication channel between the telemedicine doctor, I feel, would be necessary. But you are the medical experts. I just thought I'd pose that question to you.
Yes, Mr. Anil, as you have rightly pointed out that, not just technology and not just connecting the provider and the receiver through technology will not solve the problem. We need to build an ecosystem around it. We need to build people with the skills who will be able to identify the problems and alert the doctors at the other end, and have a good logistics, the logistics of doing laboratory examination, radiological examination, and delivering of pharmacies and transferring the patients to the higher centers when needed to district level hospitals or the urban centers is very, very important. So a lot of us talk about telemedicine. We only speak about the connectivity between the doctor and the patient, but we don't think about all the other things that we need to put in place to make this a successful project. So I think I would urge all of us to think and come together and see how we can make it a holistic approach rather than a piecemeal approach. Only then we will be able to harness the potential of the telemedicine that is there out there. And while coming to the question of alternative medicine, yoga, I'm not the expert. Definitely, I do take a lot of these herbs and practice. I exercise and do stretching and other things, though not particularly yoga for myself. But definitely, I'm not an expert to comment on that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yes, I think you're absolutely right that we have to observe these practices clinically, though I must confess that I'm a regular yoga practitioner. But this is, of course, a substitute for the regular exercise these days because one is homebound. But yes, I think some research needs to go into it. But another aspect of telemedicine, and I think medical care in general, I would like to flag here. And that is, you see, medical jurisprudence. Now, medical claims and medical legal claims, the developed countries found a way out by making these pro forma for patients to sign, which has become quite common in private medical care institutions in India. And without understanding or without being made to understand what they're signing upon, a lot of private hospitals I know personally are making patients sign up all these pro forma. And the same danger would lie in telemedicine, that before you come on the platform, they'll ask you to just give your consent. And thereafter, the patient has no rights. Now, the patient's charter, which was a necessary ingredient of a patient's rights, that I think is missing, probably in telemedicine also. And maybe the legal fraternity is taking care of the medical staff, which needs to be protected. After all, we do not want vexatious litigation. But at the same time, I think there has to be transparency in what is being administered, what are the results, and what are a patient's rights. Because after all, it is a human life that is involved. And all this is happening with oftentimes at a hefty medical fee. So have you given thought to the legal side of it?
Yes, Dr. Yes, Mr. Anil. Definitely, the patient needs to one of the areas that people have suggested to improve the adaptability of telemedicine is also to make patient party to it and give access to patient to their own medical records and ability for them to see what's happening with them and understand the the healthcare issues. So you're very right. So the patient has to be involved and also in a manner that they understand. So India being so diverse and also literacy being not to the extent that we desire. So the telemedicine platforms also should consider this aspect of it, and it has to be multilingual and also in a way that people can understand.
Yes, the idea, you see, is not that you implicate the doctors, but the patient also has his or her rights. Because I do not want to be specifically naming institutions, but I've had personal experiences of some of the most expensive and one of the most highly reputed medical facilities in the country. And I've personally experienced in the family extreme medical negligence and opacity. But at the end of the day, you let it off, saying, look here, a doctor is a lifesaver, or an institution is a lifesaver. And patients' rights in India are certainly pathetic. So that is, I think, one aspect which we'll have to take care of, because telemedicine also should not go into, you see, an unregulated practice where people who may not be appropriately qualified, and in the name of alternative remedies or whatever it is, you see, you have all kinds of practitioners in place. There has to be accountability, there has to be responsibility. At the same time, there has to be protection for the bona fide medical providers as well as for the patients. I think that is a parallel aspect that highly motivated professionals like you have to work on, because you are the pillars of the next generation and you will be facing the brunt of these issues as you go forward in life. I think these are some of the issues that I wanted to flag. And I think one issue that we might pick up today is a vaccination. There are, you see, successive conflicting interregnums between the first and second vaccination shot, which has left a large section of the populace a little confused and concerned. Now, I presume that the ICMR is the organization which authorizes, which is the agency in the government of India or in the Indian system that is supposed to certify what is the prescribed interregnum between two successive vaccinations of a particular origin. Because at the moment, there's a little confusion between Covaxin and Covishield or something else that may come up. And the prescribed interregnums have changed, though not for Covaxin. So, which is the competent authority which is supposed to lay down this law? And can it be changed midstream? Because it causes some confusion. Yes, doctor, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think at this point of time, it is the ICMR which is giving us the guidelines based on the available scientific studies and the literature. So we need to kind of go by the recommendations and wait for more evidence and wait for more trials, wait for more clinical research that is happening worldwide. So since we are 5 to 6 months into vaccination worldwide, I think the US started off in November, December timeframe. India started off in January timeframe. So we are only 4 to 5 months into this whole thing of vaccination. So we will have to wait for a couple of more months to get more evidence what is happening the world over. And only then we will be able to give more clarity in this regard.
Just a final question on vaccination. You see, the ICMR approved 2 locally produced vaccines. But now it comes out that one of the vaccines is not recognized for international travel or by the WHO at the moment. What are the implications and how soon do you think this approval will come?
Yeah, as you are aware, the one of the vaccine had not finished the phase 3 trials. It did get an emergency approval in January when we started off with the vaccination. So I think WHO is waiting for this result, and the sooner they present this report to WHO, I think they will be able to get the approval. Because I think everybody's focus is on getting as many people vaccinated as possible throughout the world, and try and get open up the economies and global travel. So definitely, like how we are anxious to get the approval, I'm sure everybody is. So, and government is also helping the company to get the approval. The moment the phase 3 trial reports are submitted, it will go through that approval process.
That's comforting, but you see, people like me chose a vaccine seeing what the executive head of the country and a former executive head took. And I realized that I cannot travel abroad. I presume they will also not be allowed to travel abroad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's see. I don't know. Rules are changing every day. Rules are changing every day, and as and when the evidence is available, the policies are being formulated on a day-to-day basis. So we will have to just keep a close tab on what's happening, and then take it forward. I think for now the focus is on vaccinating as many people as possible, and the focus is on controlling the second wave of pandemic so that our hospital beds get emptied, and we'll be able to care for patients who are really in need of the acute medical care. So the focus is on these two at this point of time. And as the new evidence come by, more and more guidelines will evolve.
Thank you. I think very appropriate response. See, the subject which Dr. Anil Garg had chosen was that how to deal with COVID pandemic in the new normal to next normal time. Now, the new normal we have seen. How would you define the next normal? That is something that I had intended putting across in my initial talk, which got interrupted. Because we have got to be very clear in our minds that this is a new normal, we're going through it. But what is our expectation of the next normal?
Yeah.
What is this next normal?
I don't think it is going to be any different from what we are going through right now, because we don't know how long this pandemic is going to last, and whether the vaccinating as much of population is a sure shot for protecting the people is something that it is not very clear at this point of time. So I guess the new normal or the next normal is just the same. It's just going to be continuing to follow the precautions that what we are doing, wearing masks, social distancing, hand hygiene, and try to avoid crowded places, because you don't know what mutant is in store for us next, and what is the calamity that it is going to bring is anybody's guess. We don't know. So when the future is so uncertain, definitely what we can do is things that which is in our hand, that is get ourselves vaccinated and follow all the precautions which has known to help reduce the fatality of this infection and known to decrease the transmissibility of this infection. So continue to do that until it gets cleared that at certain, like how this the flu incident happened in the beginning of this century, and it went on for many years, and now flu is something that happens, though it is fatal even now, right? Even after 100 years, there are so many people, though it might not come in the news. As a medical care provider, I know that flu is equally fatal, and every year there are a lot of people that succumb to this disease, especially elderly, especially those who have comorbidities like chronic lung disease, etc. Do succumb to this disease even after 100 years. So we don't know how this is going to span out. So what I suggest is what is there in our hand is what we can do. That is, get yourself vaccinated and follow the precautions.
You've rightly said that some of these, any ailment can be fatalistic, including gastroenteritis, which is a very old one, tuberculosis, anything which can, these acquired diseases, so to say, not systemic as such to the human system. But I was just on the point that to the best of your knowledge, the current medical research, what does it show? Which turn can the new mutation take? Is the mutation from the first virus to the second to the third? I mean, Vietnam has reported, I think, a mix of the so-called Indian and the so-called UK variety. Which is the latest one which is on the scene that we need to be careful of, and whether it is transmittable by air or by touch? Because if it is by touch, then even commodities which are being traded will be highly infectious.
Yeah. I don't think there is any specific answer to this. Because there are so many variants. Only thing is now the new variant, double mutant variant, is something that is in the news because of its virulence and the ability to spread faster. But not much is published on any other type of variants at this point of time.
But do these variants, as the mutations as they grow, as a medical expert, what do you predict? Do they come down in severity or intensity? or do they acquire a greater, I should say, a virulent form when they mutate? Generally.
Generally, like if you see H1N1 virus or flu virus, that is those are the historical data that we have, and we can compare ourselves with, because we don't this virus has only 2 years of history, whereas the other viruses have many years of history. As we see that, over the years, definitely they have. The amount of virulence that they have has been mutated, and as the number of people who take regular vaccines and regularly are getting immunized, more and more people getting immunized because of the subclinical infection, the virulence definitely goes down as the years come, until and unless something new happens again in terms of its mutation. So that is what we have seen in the other viruses. Whether this virus will also behave in a similar manner is need to wait and watch. So we won't be able to predict at this point of time.
Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you a question on something to do with HIV/AIDS and what we learned from that, and what does this, how is this different? Whether that was from animal origin, is this from animal origin or not? But I think that's a larger debate. We leave it for next time. Maybe since time is running out, I'll just pose one question to Dr. Vijay, if she's still there, because she was talking of alternative medicine and nutritional supplements which are being suggested. If she's still online. My problem with these nutrients is, and alternative medicine is, that there is no certifying agency which certifies the, I should say, the purity of these elements or these substances, within inverted commas.
Sir, Juby George is here. You can ask
Okay.
some question because time is running out.
My apologies. But I think I was getting an indicator here that maybe we're running out of time. Do we have time for 2-3 questions? Or if Dr. Juby would just like to speak herself, because for lack of time, maybe.
So yes, I want to say I'm hoping to get Dr. Joyce Grossman also
I'm on the
great.
call.
So my name is Juby George. I am a nurse by training, but I ended up doing a lot more than a general nurse, and especially during this COVID time, I work with Dr. Joyce Grossman, who is also here, who's an infectious disease doctor, who's also an internal medicine, pediatrics, and also has additional background in genetics, cell biology, and biochemistry. She will be a better choice to talk about some of these things, and then I can go into the supplements. And we are from the United States. We dealt with this in March of 2020, and we wanted to just say, in no way we know how difficult it is what you're dealing with, and I commend all the healthcare practitioners, healthcare workers, and government officials, and everyone who doing their best they can to just get through this horrific time. And we are here to support you, and we're just sharing some information, hoping it would help, with no decision making or anything to say you have to do this. You have to do your own research, because it's very confusing time, because too many people are saying too many different things. And with that, we just hope we can shed some light, because that's what we had to do here in the United States at that challenging time. With that, Dr.
Thank
Grossman,
you so much. May I request Dr. Joyce Grossman to kindly say a few quick points before we are able to close this discussion.
Hello, this is Dr. Joyce Grossman. Let me tell you, my heart bleeds for you. I know what you're going through. We went through it here in the United States, and especially in New York. To begin with, I must say that the goal of our therapy plan at this point in the United States is vaccination. We have a choice of 3 vaccinations. We are now vaccinating people 12 and older, and that is the push in the United States, is to get everybody vaccinated for herd immunity. That being said, we are also testing people. We test people to see if they're positive. Number one, to see the prevalence in our community, in our country, and also to look at the variants to make sure our treatment is okay. In the United States, the therapy is decided by the physician and the patient. So physicians really decide what course. When you're tested, if you're positive and asymptomatic, your doctor will consider other comorbidities. Do you have heart disease? Do you have kidney disease? Do you have, are you obese? And he will decide whether or not you receive intravenous monoclonal antibodies. These have been shown to make the symptoms better and to keep people out of the hospitals, not only to improve the number of people who survive, but to keep your hospitals open and not overwhelmed. So basically, this is a decision between the doctor and his patient. Some doctors also will give oral antibiotics and oral anticoagulants, since many of the patients do get emboli, microemboli. And they also give pulse oximeters because there are patients with this virus that look fine, feel fine, and meanwhile they're hypoxic and they'll code very shortly. So basically, we're always following the oxygenation of the patients if they're home, and basically we leave it up to the doctors to do the course of treatment and whether or not the patient should stay home or in the hospital. Now, I'm going to jump to those who go to the hospital since we're short of time. Now, in the hospitals, we keep the patients in a prone position. We want to keep patients off respirators as much as we can because it's been shown that patients on ventilators die at a higher rate. So basically, we try to keep the patients, even when they're in acute care, off the ventilator. We will start IV antiviral therapy. We will start steroids, either IV or oral, because this has been shown also to help. And also, we will consider starting convalescent serum. Now, convalescent serum has been shown to help patients. Some patients will get monoclonal antibodies even in the hospital, but the convalescent serum has many factors, including factors that, cut down on inflammation, boost immunity, even though this serum can be inflammatory. It appears that when it's been used for patients, it's improved the mortality. It's kept patients off ventilators. And that really is the goal. The goal is not only to get patients to survive, it's also to keep them out of the hospitals, because hospital beds are precious and it doesn't take much to overwhelm your healthcare system. And so basically, what we're doing is, when the patients are in the hospitals, we're monitoring them very closely. They do cause microemboli. We're watching their renal function. That's been a big problem because many of these patients end up needing hemodialysis. We watch their oxygenation. We watch their cardiac output. Myocarditis also has been more of a problem with this virus than with other viruses. So with close observation and vaccination and early therapy, we have really been able to reduce the number of patients we have in the hospital. And before I close, I'm doing this very quickly, I also want to emphasize that there is a post-COVID syndrome, that even though you think your patients are finished, they're not. They lose taste and smell because this virus also affects the brain. That also leads to episodes of encephalitis, psychosis, and dementia. It causes, unfortunately, myocarditis, so the hearts have to be looked at. It causes renal failure. So even when you're past the acute phase and you say, I'm on my way to being well, no, you still need close monitoring for these post-COVID syndromes, which then end up a drain on your healthcare system, even after the patient has survived and is out of acute care. And I think I've said it quickly, and I hope I've said enough, and I will pass this on to Juby.
I just wanted to say one of the things that we ended up having to do is put this intense medical information translation navigation so that the doctors, the hospital administrators, the government leaders could make the decisions they need. So you need to find a group that can do something like that. Fortunately, we ended up becoming that, and we knew enough people, and enough people knew us to do this with us, and it was done quietly outside of the main channel, so that the factors outside our control, who are directing the navigation, is not not influencing, and just doing the right thing for the right reason for the patients and the people, and that was very important. Now, talking about some of the supplements and other things, there are several things that seem to be working, and seemed to be working consistently since March, April. We did our best to put that online. I don't feel comfortable saying some of the things. I can direct Dr. Anil to share some of the information. One place I would say is there is an alliance called FLCC, flccc.org, which is an alliance of critical care doctors. Now it's international. They have taken the time to put everything together, all the research, and put it out on the web with everything supported. And now it's gone international. I believe about 26 countries are aligned with it. I need you guys to start taking a look at there. I can't say further than that, and maybe I can share the link to Dr. Anil, who can share that with all of you, and then you make some choices on how that could be done. The next thing is vitamin C, zinc, or quercetin, which is a zinc ionophore, vitamin D. So this is just very fast on a morning that I thought I'm speaking tomorrow. I had 24 hours for this. My apologies. All right. So those are the classic one, that is outpatient prevention, and something that thins a little bit because of the clothing. So that would be aspirin or something else. Your Ayurvedic side, please have them look at papaya and pineapple, but papaya various, the fruit, the leaf, the seed. So please have someone who knows more about it take a look at it. That would be a good place. That seemed to have an impact on the long COVID. And yeah, so I don't want to minimize long COVID is catastrophic. So COVID, you recover. Some people who had just mild COVID, who never ended up in the hospital, managed at home, now their life is decimated. It's coming out almost like myalgic encephalitis. Or chronic fatigue syndrome, plus others. I mean, the spectrum of symptoms is 100 plus. It just attacks your whole body. So people are having, they can't work anymore. They're bedridden. Their brain function is decreased by several factors. So they are not as a healthy, active, normal human being anymore. And this is going on for months. This is not a 3-month or 4-month. We are seeing people who've been dealing with this now over a year. The reason we say that is in New York and New Jersey and Washington, state of Washington, are the two places we saw this early. So it's every hospital in the pretty much, they have over 100 plus post-COVID care centers, PCCC. That is what they had to do to manage this now. So hospitals are designating, but they don't have a standardized process to manage it. It's just the reimbursement system here is such that if you have that under the umbrella thing, you can still operate versus you're not able to see patients or outpatients. So that's why it is. But you need to start to look at it, come up with some standardization. I will recommend. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, and I can add that.
I think Juby, as well as Dr. Joyce, you've put across very, very interesting issues. I would first just pose a query to Dr. Joyce. And that is, you see, in India, what one is noticing is that a lot of people, the post-50 or post-60 age group, post-COVID, they are succumbing to what is being termed as cardiac arrest. And the reported cause of fatality at the end of it. Now, what do you think is causing this cardiac? You just hinted somewhere that yes, there is probably an effect on the heart muscle, I suspect, of either the disease or possibly of some of the medications that are going into the treatment of the disease, because a patient dying of cardiac symptoms did not have initially a very, I should say, concerning record of cardiac history. That is a cause of concern. The other issue you talked, you see, of monoclonal antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies, since there are different variants of COVID moving around, do you think a single monoclonal antibody without specific reference to the kind of variant that a patient is afflicted with, is it pertinent or is it relevant to that particular treatment? And the last question I would put to Ms. Juby George. She mentioned the nutritional supplements like zinc and vitamin C, etc. I'd just like to ask one question. How long can zinc be given? Vitamin C, vitamin D, I can understand, okay. But is there a stage where you have to monitor the amount of zinc that you are taking to avoid any toxicology coming out of it? Or with excessive zinc, some other infections, secondary infections, and a question mark in India of an infection that is coming up is black fungus. Does it have anything to do? Are there any clinical studies which show that excessive intake of some of these supplements, which are supposed to be immunity boosters, are they making patients more prone to such fatalities?
Okay, I'm going to start with the myocarditis.
Yeah.
I'm going to go by the American experience. In this country, we have seen myocarditis with this virus. Basically, patients don't have any cardiac history. We don't really know why patients get myocarditis, but it is also seen with other viruses, including flu, but it seems to be more prevalent with this virus. Now, I'm going to go on to the second point, which is this virus also causes a lot of microemboli. And so therefore, there's no guarantee that even though a patient's now clinically better, and I have heard of instances where patients are doing better and suddenly they get microemboli and they get strokes and they get heart attacks. So that also may be a reason for this. And so, I mean, this virus is doing things that would cause people, especially in their 50s and 60s, who already have some coronary artery disease. Their vessels are not, young and virgin like they were when they were 16, get a lot of these complications. So yes, it doesn't surprise me. And unfortunately, this virus does things in higher percentages than we've seen with other viruses. So I think it's explained by the virus. Of course, it could be secondary to treatments too, but the virus itself could cause that. Now, to get on to your second question, which was in terms of the monoclonal antibodies. These antibodies have to be tailored, really, to the variant that you're seeing in your community. In the United States, 7 states have stopped using the Eli Lilly product because it doesn't work, because the variants that are predominant, it has no effect on. So therefore, yes, you do have to tailor your monoclonal antibodies, and that's why I said at the beginning of the talk, I'm sorry I'm so rushed, because we're short for time, that really it's important to look at the variant sequence people who are positive to get an idea of what variants are now circulating in your population. And yes, the monoclonal antibodies should be changed to reflect the variants that you have in your population. So we're seeing it now in the United States. There are 7 states that are not using the classic monoclonal antibodies because they're not effective anymore. I hope I've answered your questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry to talk so fast.
No, it's all right. You're very precise. And I know it's probably very early for you in the morning there.
No. I just want to make sure we don't run out of time. I want, Juby to be able to talk.
Yeah. I think if...
I would like to answer.
Just a minute. Juby has to answer.
No, go ahead. No, let Dr. Padma go.
Okay. Dr.
Actually, I think this thromboembolism is only because of the immunity. In the first few days, the patients develop immunity. That antigen-antibody complexes will create the cytokine outburst. That cytokine burst is the reason for all this thromboembolism and all those complications. That's the reason why nowadays people are telling to go for immunosuppressant after first few days. When they are entering the second stage, they have to go for immunosuppressant. Okay, that antigen-antibody complexes will trigger all the cytokine bursts, and they are the reason for this thromboembolism and all such things.
Dr. Padma, excuse me. See, my specific question was on standardization and which is the certifying authority which certifies the purity of these ingredients or whatever is the active component that you are going for, and its strength in the particular formulation that is being given. Which is the certifying agency? Is it a recognized agency?
I'm not actually I'm a professor.
You see, is the standard developed under an ISO or whatever it is? That is my specific question.
Actually, the phytochemicals, which what Ayurveda does is holistic approach. They do extracts. The extracts which contain several phytoconstituents, they work. And what I do is, I'm a researcher. I do the phytochemical constituents from each plant extract, and we will identify the various phytochemical constituents by doing GPNC. There are several instruments, GCMS analysis, and all those things. So, HPLC. So there are several chromatographic and several techniques which will nowadays LCMS is also there. So LCMS, MS, there are high-end instruments which can tell us the actual phytochemical action, the constituents, phytoconstituents can be analyzed using such LCMS and LCMS, such kind of. Actually, what I do is I'm a researcher. I'm a biotechnologist. I do the phytoconstituents, how they modulate the various cell signaling pathways and all. We study both in the cell culture studies as well as in the animal studies. So I was looking into all the constituents, first identifying the phytoconstituents which actually interact with the receptor. We know that spike protein is responsible for the infection in COVID infection. So the coronavirus has spike protein, which particular phytoconstituents will interact with that and inhibit so that the virus entry is stopped. It enters only, the virus is an obligate parasite. Only after entering into the cell only it can multiply. So prevention is better than cure. So once the virus enters the body also, there are, initially if the antibodies are there, they can neutralize the virus. Or if you stop the entry point, that is, if spike protein, if the phytoconstituents are interacting with the spike protein, they will inhibit the entry of the virus into the cell, so that multiplication will be inhibited. So that is one step. And later on, stopping the cytokine burst. Some of the phytoconstituents can act in stopping the cytokine burst. So that I told you there are several complications which come from the cytokine burst. That is what many people are succumbing. So that can be also inhibited with the phytoconstituents. So immune boosters are to be given as prophylaxis before the infection. After the infection, we have to go for antiviral drugs, which can inhibit the viral entry and later on to stop the cytokine burst. These are the things which we should do. And those can be done with the specific constituents, how they interact with the molecular interactions that we have to study. We cannot just go with the extract. Once we know which phytoconstituent is for which particular property, later on we can develop the formulation. So nowadays the formulations are several phytoconstituents which can bring together, which can have the synergistic effect.
Dr. Padma, you mentioned a lot of the plant research and the extract research that you are obviously.
Because the time is less, so I immediately stopped actually.
Just a minute. Do you see any connectivity between your works and I should say a confluence or a congruity with the homeopathic tinctures and their efficacy? Or you try to? No, because there are, you see, all homeopathic medicines by and large are of plant origin, and they claim to have an effect on the symptoms and also treatment of a certain disease or an onset of a disease. Of course, the philosophy being of titration, etc., or whatever it is. And then, do you find that there is any chance of integration of that research or those findings into the kind of modern microbiology that you are concentrating on or researching on at the moment?
I've never gone into that homeopathic medicine. I'm not aware of that, what exactly. But we generally do. I told you that I am coming to the Ayurvedic, though I'm not an Ayurvedic practitioner. As a researcher, we look into the natural, I told you, the phytoconstituents, how they modulate, how they interact with the various molecular interactions. We see all the cell signaling pathways, how these phytoconstituents modulate the cell signaling pathways, and how they develop as drug candidates.
No, I think, Doctor, you people, if I may suggest, need to look into it, because there are allopathic medicines also. I think if a name I can recollect is Rauwolfia serpentina, which was actively used in allopathic medicine. It's from plant origin. It's not a chemically produced substance. So there is need for confluence of the medical systems and not move in parallel lines, because that confuses the patient, it confuses the system, and I think creates too many alternatives without a confluence. But at the end of the day, the common objective is to treat the patient, and treat the patient on scientifically proved methodologies. And you are following a scientific methodology. Unfortunately, the Indian research on the subject for generations was family kept secrets, as you know. They were never part of a lab or a scientific examination, but the wealth of knowledge is there, the substances are there, the historical records are there, and you have a starting point. And we need to move the various systems of medicine together. Because at the end of the day, the person being treated is the same Homo sapiens species. And I think we doctors need to, and researchers need to integrate their works and come to a common approach. No scientific research, I think, is anti-human. It is meant to treat a human being who is the same. He has the same genetical composition. So I think as a citizen, this is what bothers me at times, because there's tremendous research findings on base metals, heavy metals, what they can do, what gold can do, how it can cure paralysis. But
These heavy metals are used widely in Ayurvedic and all that. Though
yes,
although they are having some beneficial properties, they are again toxic in slightly higher
you see, not only
concentrations. How
Ayurvedic,
you can eliminate them kidney
you see,
toxicity they cause.
it is also in Unani medicines.
Yeah.
So these are old
We
systems.
should be very careful.
Yes, you have to be careful. But the onus lies on people like you who are sitting in labs to take ownership of these systems of medicine, integrate them, put them on a scientifically provable platform, and a standardization of formulation. I'm sorry to be quizzing you something. I'm a civil servant and a bureaucrat, and I have no business to ask these questions. I only do so on the direction of Dr. Anil Garg. I may sound very, very foolish, but I think.
May I say something to support that? Silver is found to be antiviral, antifungal, and including possibly the things that's happening now. But different countries and different governing bodies, especially in the healthcare side, have different perspective on it. So as a researcher or end user, it's up to you to figure this out. I would say really look at silver.
I know when I was a kid, I think from the time I grew up till I started looking after myself, I was only given water in a silver tumbler or a silver spoon or even a silver plate. Only that
having antimicrobial activity.
So now let's take that to the next level. Now that we are in 2021, we have something that's been around for 15 to 20 years called nanotechnology.
Precisely.
And what do you get? Now, I cannot say anything further on those kind of topics. Again, because of the country that I belong to and where the way things are, I have to watch what I say. So if you need, Dr. Anil will get some stuff from me. He will share with you.
Yeah, sure.
May I flash a few screenshots? I apologize for not putting a presentation together, but I want to share some things with you guys that we did a year ago. I apologize if it may look a little old, but Dr. Anil, would you be able to give me a co-host capability? Because I just need to show this. There is no way to explain this. So we went through Ayurveda, looked at Ayurveda, I want to say somewhere in July of last year, and put some things together that seemed to work. And it was through the Ayush and clinical trials that it was going on. So I just want to just show you guys, and if you can take that and disseminate or translate it into the way you need to translate it and utilize, if it's great.
I think Juby, Dr. Garg is going to probably allow you, hopefully. But before I close down, you mentioned silver. Please don't forget copper.
Yes, copper seems to work.
Properties. So there's basic metal. What I'm talking is I know something about them. Thank you so much. Over to Dr. Anil Garg, because I've eaten 1 hour into my yoga time. Okay, go ahead. Dr. Garg, please go ahead, take over. I think he'll give you a sharing platform. Maybe how many minutes do you need to flash it?
For a minute. I need to show through three slides.
Go ahead. I have assumed his authority and authorized you to do it.
It's okay. I don't think he's able to do it. You have to go to the participants and make me.
You have a screen sharing facility in front of you. Please exercise it.
Oh no, I'm as a you have to. He has to promote me to host role. I'm just a participant.
Okay, Puneet, are you online? Please give the facility.
My apologies for doing that, but continue
Yeah, sure,
on.
sir. We will
Puneet, go ahead.
share screen.
Could you give me ability to share the screen? Make me a co-host so that I can just share screen for like a minute.
Yes, please
Okay.
share.
So I had to pull things from multiple places. My apologies again for jumping around. This is some of the presentations that we did under Dr. Grossman's leadership. A lot of doctors and government leaders and healthcare leaders, we just went through, we just had to put information out. I tried to put the link
Please
to the
use
chat.
the full screen mode.
Okay, let me see. I prefer to do it this way so then I know what I'm doing. Like I got to jump around. So let me see if I can enhance it. Okay, there you are.
I think it's okay. It's okay. We can get you.
So yeah, so basically these are the Ayurvedic, and this is by clinical. We don't say anything unless it's research published and it's validated. So this is clinically validated. It was published in May of 2020. Vithania, Ashwagandha, Gaduchi, Shashwati, Amalaki. Amalaki obviously is really super vitamin C. Yashtimandu are the things that was looked at. And then since then, there have been more. Obviously, turmeric is classic, ginger. Let me, I am still trying to. Then post-COVID, Brahmi is great for the brain. And then there are a few others that's bringing down the inflammation. So this is a good little out of what has happened or what's going on. Let me just see if I can show you one other thing on this whole. Okay, so there are some antihistamines that seem to help the virus from taking over. So it's in the early, or you can use this as a preventative medicine. These are some of the events that again published, researched and published, and this was introduced by Dr. Grossman and Dr. Ortel. Dr. Ortel is a medical doctor and a geneticist who has done an intense research into this area. Just on COVID itself. She's one of the foremost ones that we know who really understands the big picture. So I would recommend taking a look at this. I did add the link. Pepsid is seemed to also alkalize when your body is on an alkaline state versus acidic. This virus seemed to have a less of a propensity to grow. And so that's the other piece that we were able to gather. Again, these are all validated, published, not me saying anything. I'm just pushing out, sharing research information. And onto the virus variants. There are a lot of variants happening. So Dr. Grossman is a geneticist in addition to, so we went into the variants world. I would highly recommend that you guys have someone who's very good in this space start to go from the 0 to present, not take what is being said.
Thank you, Juby. Is that all?
Yes.
Do I guess that your origins are from Kerala?
Yes, I am. I'm Malayali.
You are very much. I was 99% sure, so you should have greater faith in herbal medicine. Thank you very much.
Yes, I do. That was the first thing I knew about herbal, Ayurveda, homeopathy, then English medicine. So hence I have a different perspective.
Okay, good. Dr. Anil Garg, please take over.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Juby. Thank you, all other distinguished panelists, and for giving enlightened view on this subject, which is causing world with this heavy loss of people. And thank you, Mr. Anil Rajdan, for ably chairing and having allowed distinguished panelists to speak their views and asking pertinent questions that will enlighten all the participants. Thank you very much. We will share this presentation to all the participants, and it will be available with us on YouTube. Thank you. Thank you, Jubi. Thank you, Mr. Anil Rajdan.
Thank you, sir.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure. Godspeed to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.